Thank you for joining us for this look at the best original reporting from KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and it has been a sobering week when it comes to the number of COVID-19 cases. So bad, California is now taking action in response to the spike of patients ending up in the hospital and the ICU. All healthcare workers must now get vaccinated before the end of September. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel with the urgent message from San Diego County hospitals.
We are today at Scripps Health. We have 122 patients in the hospital. At our peak in January, we had 500.
Although hospitalizations are nowhere near the peak that was seen in January, Dr. Ghazala Sharif with Scripps Health says those numbers are quickly picking up. They're also starting to see younger patients come in.
We have somebody in house who was 23. We have a 24, 25-year-old. These are unvaccinated.
County health officials announced Wednesday that 2 million people have been fully vaccinated. It's a great milestone, but Sharif says we still have a ways to go to reach herd immunity.
Otherwise, we're going to keep doing this COVID cycle. More variants will come in. My concern is at some point, do we get to a variant that the vaccine is effective against at all? Because we have not gotten to that herd immunity level yet.
Sharif understands that people are fatigued from pandemic restrictions, but she says it's time to buckle down.
The biggest thing we can do right now is go back to masking, distancing, all the things we know worked before that we kind of let up on.
Christopher Longhurst with UCSD Health also agrees.
Somebody described it recently as being like a wildfire in California, and Delta was the spark that lit the flame, but the change in masking measures is really the wind that carried it.
Longhurst says unless there's significant changes in public health restrictions, numbers will continue to increase through September and October. There currently is no masking mandate in the county. Meanwhile, neighboring counties with similar infection rates have issued mask mandates to mitigate the spread of the virus. Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
In San Diego, more than 90% of COVID-19 cases are among the unvaccinated, but numbers of those fully vaccinated and catching the virus are rising too. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman says hospitalizations and deaths among those vaccinated are still very low.
To be honest, the last month or so, I haven't been wearing a mask inside grocery stores, and we've been inside crowded restaurants.
City Heights resident Suzanne Hoyam and her husband were both vaccinated in April and slowly started returning to a pre-pandemic lifestyle.
Kind of enjoying that freedom I thought we had.
But after recently feeling under the weather and lightheaded, she decided to get a coronavirus test, and it came back positive, making her one of nearly 3,000 breakthrough cases in San Diego.
My symptoms were very, very mild, almost so much that I probably wouldn't have gotten tested if I hadn't been so paranoid about breakthrough cases.
Her husband also caught the virus despite being vaccinated. Their symptoms have been mild and they haven't had to seek medical attention.
I really feel grateful that I'm vaccinated. I'm so grateful that my symptoms are minimal. Like, I really do feel like the only reason why I'm, walking and talking and standing here is because I'm vaccinated.
Medical experts say cases like Hoyam's show that despite infection, the vaccines are working, protecting against death and hospitalizations.
Even though there are more breakthrough infections, they're definitely very mild and short-lived in vaccinated persons.
Dr. Francesca Torriani is an infectious disease specialist at UC San Diego Health. She says the more contagious Delta variant could be the reason for the uptick in cases among those fully vaccinated.
We do see more breakthroughs than we ever saw before. And this may simply be because Delta the Delta variant is associated with so much more virus.
Since March of this year, around 9% of coronavirus infections here have been among those fully vaccinated, and they account for just 2% of hospitalizations and 7% of deaths.
So this pandemic is still an unvaccinated pandemic.
Torriani says the Delta variant is changing the fight against the pandemic, especially since infections in those fully vaccinated can be extremely mild, but the virus can still be spread.
That's why masking as protection of others, right? So that I don't infect others, so that this is source control, is so important.
Hoyam isn't sure how she caught the virus, but she says she's now back to masking and at least for now is not sold on returning to normal.
I was, flying real close to the sun there, like enjoying what I could. And now I'm kind of going to dial it back. And if I'm a cautionary tale, I would just say to dial it back a little bit, and maybe we're not out of the woods yet.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Some much-needed COVID relief money is coming to small businesses in the county. It's part of Mayor Todd Gloria's goal to get businesses back on track and people back to work. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel has more from a business owner in North Park who says a lifeline is very much needed.
Even though it may be from the 1950s.
Gail Higgins, the owner of the Girl Can't Help It, specializes in vintage clothing. Her store has been a labor of love, fueled by her passion for vintage fashion. But lately, it's been more labor with little reward as pandemic hurdles grow higher.
So I was looking into bankruptcy, into closure, into storage units, into whatever I thought may be the next step.
Mayor Gloria's new plan, Back to Work SD, was recently approved by City Council. $10 million will go toward helping nonprofits and small businesses recover from the pandemic's economic impacts. Higgins says it's the help that business owners need right now.
I think that if we receive more help, it will take away some of the anxiety of, is this going to change again? You know, with numbers going up again, with wear a mask, don't wear a mask, vaccinated, not vaccinated.
Angela Landsberg, the executive director of North Park Main Street, says a lot of businesses are still struggling. She says some businesses that took out loans to prevent closure are already being asked to pay that money back. Businesses that need help will be able to apply for the grant money through the San Diego Foundation starting next week. Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
Sweetwater Union High School, one of the first districts to return to school, is seeing a number of positive COVID cases among students. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel spoke to some families at the district who are considering going back to online learning.
I thought that it was going to be a few hours, but it was shorter than I expected.
Lines reached all the way to the parking lot as parents and children flocked to the COVID testing site held at Eastlake High School Tuesday. Some students tell us that they have been advised to get tested as positive cases have been confirmed at school.
In my school, a lot of kids are getting infected by COVID.
Sofia Carreno is 2 weeks into the new school year at Eastlake Middle School. Although she is vaccinated and happy to be back for in-person learning, she's starting to have reservations.
Honestly, I kind of don't really want to go to in-person classes because I don't want to risk my health.
Her dad, Erico Carreno, says they're trying to do what's best for their kids. They are now looking into hybrid school options for their daughter, Sofia.
I think it's better to don't expose at this moment the kids.
Nadej Johnson is the communications director at Sweetwater Union High School District. She says in-person learning is going well. There haven't been any major outbreaks at school, but some kids have tested positive.
Testing sites have been very popular and active as well, and so we've been providing testing at several different locations throughout the week for the last 2 weeks.
Out of the 35,000 students attending in-person classes, 58 students have tested positive, according to the district's COVID dashboard. Johnson says with COVID still being a threat to the community, positive cases were expected. This is why they're continuing to offer free testing at different school sites.
We're requiring masks and testing. We know that testing, vaccinations, and wearing your mask is the best way to stop the spread of COVID-19.
Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
Since the story first aired, more cases have been reported. The district has confirmed a total of 90 cases at all campuses since reopening in late July. Major developments in the fire investigation that destroyed the USS Bonhomme Richard in July. Investigators released new details of the sailor who they believe caused it. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says the documents reveal a name and a possible motive.
Documents unsealed this week showed 20-year-old seaman apprentice Ryan Sawyer Mays had tried to become a Navy SEAL, but he quit 5 days after entering SEAL basic training in Coronado. An Instagram post shows him saying, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." A witness told investigators Mays hated the Navy. Former ATF fire investigator Robert Shaw says,
It's all circumstantial. Now you get a lot of circumstantial case, sooner or later you're able to prove it.
Mays was eventually assigned to the USS Bonhomme Richard. According to naval investigators, morale and behavior among those who fail SEAL training is often challenging once they come to the fleet. His former girlfriend described him as bipolar. During a 10-hour interview, Mays initially told investigators that he didn't know of any way to get out of the area of the fire without being detected, but later revealed that he did.
In a statement like that, we kind of call it a false exculpatory statement where you give a statement that's false, but it's intended to show that you couldn't have done it. Oh, I couldn't have been down there. There's no way out. Well, yes, there are ways out.
3 of the 4 nearby fire stations had been disabled. During the investigation, one bottle that had been tagged as evidence was missing at the scene.
It seems like somebody intentionally tampered with it because the flagging tape was around the bottle and it was put on something. They found the flagging tape, but the bottle was gone. So
documents were originally filed in August 2020 as investigators sought Mays' email history from Google. Beginning July 12th, the fire burned for 5 days aboard the ship. 71 people were injured. Mays is in custody. He is expected to stand trial in military court in San Diego. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
A local military veteran who survived the attack at Pearl Harbor has died of COVID-19. Stu Headley was the sole survivor on the battleship West Virginia. In a tweet, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria said Stu Headley is a hero. He survived Pearl Harbor and spent the rest of his life ensuring San Diegans never forgot the date that lives in infamy. He would have turned 100 years old on October 31st. Wildfire is a constant threat to our region, and in an effort to mitigate those threats, SDG&E has presented plans to preserve the environment and protect communities by reducing utility-related risk. The efforts include safety shutoffs, strategic undergrounding, an expanded generator grant program, as well as advanced clean technology. The plans also include a flow battery to keep critical facilities and customers energized during a power shutoff. The San Diego City Council has approved the first overhaul of the city's parks master plan in 65 years. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the goal is equity.
In the past, neighborhood parks were largely funded by fees tied to new development. That meant newer and wealthier neighborhoods with more growth received a disproportionate share of park money. The new system requires that a portion of development fees, regardless of where they come from, go to underserved communities. Councilmember Vivian Moreno says the status quo has left her constituents behind.
Kids have no safe place to play in their neighborhoods. Seniors don't have safe places to walk and exercise. Park deprivation is why you see people playing soccer on basketball courts and in parking lots, and we felt it tremendously during the lockdown.
Councilmember Chris Cate cast the only vote against the park plan, saying he fears his district, which includes the fast-growing community of Kearny Mesa, could be left behind.
We have communities in my district that are going to be seeing tens of thousands of new units be built, potentially over 100,000 new residents come into my communities with really no assurances or guarantees that even a small bit of the funding that would come from those communities will go back to those communities for parks.
The park master plan update also includes incentives for more affordable housing, and it changes how the city evaluates park quality, with less emphasis on acreage and more emphasis on a park's amenities. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A new ordinance that bans the sale of ghost guns was also approved by the San Diego City Council. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel has more on what this means for gun owners.
Yes, that passes 8-1 with Councilmember Cate voting no.
The Enough ordinance, passed by the San Diego City Council Monday, aims to eliminate non-serialized, untraceable firearms, ghost guns, in the county. The ordinance prohibits the possession, purchase, and sale of non-serialized guns and gun kits in San Diego and online. Councilwoman Marnie Von Wilpert says the recent rise in ghost guns and the tragic gas lamp shooting in April that killed one person and injured 3 others pushed her to move the ordinance forward.
If anyone wants to purchase a lower receiver or unfinished frame, it will be required to be serialized and traceable just like any other firearm in the stream of commerce.
The San Diego Police Department has sounded the alarm on these guns, citing a 169% increase of ghost guns being found at crime scenes. According to SDPD, the majority of these untraceable guns are found in the hands of felons, drug dealers, and people prohibited from purchasing a gun. This is why Councilmember Chris Cate voted no on the ordinance in a standalone vote.
Councilmember Cate.
No.
He says the new law would not prohibit criminals from continuing to break the law. In California, owning an unserialized firearm is already illegal.
It is completely unreasonable to believe they will follow this new law. This law does nothing to prevent mass shootings. This law does nothing to hold criminals accountable. This law does nothing to make us safer.
However, gun violence advocates like Stephen Abrams hope this new law will prevent more deaths.
I've lost friends to gun violence, and I see and I've hugged too many mothers who've lost their sons to gun violence.
Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
There's a major effort underway in the U.S. to shut down the multi-billion-dollar trade in exotic animals such as lions, tigers, and leopards. Some of these big cats wind up in sanctuaries, like one right here in San Diego County. KPBS reporter John Carroll takes us there.
Set among the rolling hills of San Diego County's backcountry, just a few miles outside of Alpine, a menagerie, 93 acres of sanctuary, and a name. Lions, tigers, and bears, a home for rescued animals.
The exotic animal trade suck into drugs and weapons and human trafficking in our country. These animals are used, abused, and bred for nothing more than profit. Nola! Come on, Nola!
Bobby Brink is the founder and director of Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Home to dozens of animals, not just the ones in the title. Bobcats, goats, a llama, along with some horses and birds live here too. It is accredited by the American Sanctuary Association, and that's important.
A true sanctuary rescues, provides a lifetime home, does not breed, sell, or trade animals.
Videographer Mike Damron and I were here last Thursday, International Tiger Day.
At least 10,000 tigers are kept in captivity as pets.
People begin their time here watching a video explaining how the animals they're about to see got here. But this being International Tiger Day, there was something special. Treats hidden in cardboard creations, raw meat for Nola and Mocha. It costs either $43 or $46 for adults depending on the day and $26 for children for a day's visit. The 15,000 yearly visitors help pay the bills.
It's about $15,000 a year to feed just one cat. And then, of course, our biggest expenses are building these vast habitats, insurance, pumping the water, electricity, keeper salary. All these animals got to have someone to take care of them daily. So, yeah, it's not cheap.
About $2 million a year to take care of 65 animals. So while visitors help with daily expenses,
we do survive on donations.
Donations that help pay for big costs, like the rehabilitation of the animals. A lot of them are in bad shape when they arrive. The life these bears lived before getting here is stomach-turning.
Baloo behind me is a perfect example, what we call pit bears. So they're literally in cinder block pits where the bears can't see out, kept in breeding pairs, and then when the babies are born, they pull the babies about 8 days, 6-8 days. From the mama. They take them up top where the mama can hear and smell them but can't see them for people to get their picture taken.
Do you still get angry at your fellow human beings?
I have to control my temper a lot because you can't lose your temper or we lose. And we want to get the animals out of there. And sometimes this can take like years, 5-6 years to get animals out of just disgusting places.
Bobby Brink began her professional career as a flight attendant in 1990, but she soon realized that wasn't for her. Next, she became a restaurateur, but eventually she and her husband's life paths led them here. They opened this place in 2002. She says nowadays her most rewarding moments come from visitors who arrive not knowing anything about the exotic animal trade, but leave educated and motivated to do something about it. Someday, Brink hopes there won't be a need for places like lions, tigers, and bears.
That is a sanctuary's job, is to try to be putting sanctuaries out of business.
But until that day arrives, Brink, her staff, and her volunteers will continue to expand this special place by building more habitats and by doing the daily work of making life as good as it can be for these animals who have suffered so much. John Carroll, KPBS News.
San Diego is taking action to keep people and sea lions from hurting each other at the rocky shoreline of La Jolla Point. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says the city is asking for emergency approval to keep people out of the sea lion rookery.
The tension between La Jolla Point's sea lions and onlookers has been simmering for years. The attraction of sea lion pups hauled out on the rocky shore is too enticing. This video shows tourists crowding those pups, which are not yet proficient swimmers. And the threat doesn't always come from the shore. Another video shows a diver coming up on the beach and scattering the marine mammals. People regularly ignore guidance about how to deal with those sea lions, but many take in the scene while following the rules. Marlon Aguilera is visiting from Kansas City. She found the sea lions captivating.
It's just very beautiful. I've never seen anything like it. This is my first time actually being here, and I was very shocked to just see the wildlife right here, right in front of us.
And while Aguilera followed the rules and kept her distance, others ignore the warnings. So city officials hope a temporary emergency closure of the rocky shoreline through mid-September will help minimize dangerous interactions. City parks officials say it's important to protect people and to allow the sea lions to care for and raise their young. San Diego City Council member Jolla thought he had a solution when he publicly addressed the issue in June.
What we did about a month ago was put out some additional signs. We did some stenciling on that short wall that encouraged people to stay away. And that, of course, did not really get the results that we were hoping for.
LaCava says the chance to get a selfie with the marine mammals is too irresistible, and the extra signage didn't stop the interactions. He says that puts young sea lion pups in danger, as well as people, because sea lions will lash out if they feel threatened. LaCava hopes the new strong approach during the summer pupping season works.
We will be installing signs that simply say area closed. And the city park and rec department will determine where to place them. Essentially, it will be on the ocean side of that short wall. We'll also put a chain across the wooden stairway that is at one end of that wall.
It's a really good start.
Robin Davidoff is a docent for the Sierra Club's SEAL Society.
We are really pleased to have that. It's a great start. We think that will help quite a bit. A lot of education is needed, and enforcement is needed by the rangers.
Davidoff and others have recorded lots of ill-advised interactions between people and the marine mammals. She says access to the rocky shore needs to be limited because it's just too easy to get close right now. This low wall is sometimes the only barrier between sea lion habitat and the people who are walking by. It's very easy to climb over. Davidoff suggests that perhaps putting a railing on top of it would create the separation that's needed between sea lions and people. The signage and access restrictions the city is asking for would only be in place until the middle of September. Access to the shore would be permitted after the pupping season is over, but city officials are also considering longer-term solutions, which could include cutting off access to the shore during the summer months. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The new Rady Shell at Jacobs Park will host its first ever concert tomorrow night. The ribbon was cut for the new Bayside venue. KPBS reporter Melissa May was there and gives us a look.
We'd like to, at this time, ask for blessings upon this new facility here.
A blessing for the new Rady Shell from Native American activist Randy Edmonds.
And bless this new facility that it may be used for the benefit of the San Diego community. Aho dog thank you. I have spoken.
The Shell at Jacobs Park is the new home for the San Diego Symphony. Martha Gilmer is the San Diego Symphony's CEO and is excited for the future of the venue.
The magic of music making is not exclusive, it's inclusive. It does not stop at borders or fences. That is what this space symbolizes and will come to mean in the life of San Diego.
David Schneider is the chair of the San Diego Symphony and sees the Rady Shell as a new beginning for the symphony.
What we aspire to today is a space to be filled with concerts, with events and activity that will raise the human spirit. Today we commence the most important work of the San Diego Symphony.
Sarah Schuster has been the principal oboist for the symphony since 2009 and spoke on behalf of her fellow musicians.
This world-class performance space has enabled and inspired us to play together with far greater sensitivity and accuracy, and will ultimately help us grow together as an orchestra. We can't wait to share our music at the Rady Shell with the San Diego community and beyond.
The Rady Shell is the first permanent waterfront concert venue on the West Coast and the first Bayside concert venue in the nation to be operated by a symphony orchestra. Melissa May, KPBS News.
And the Shell will host its first ever concert tonight. We hope you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thank you for joining us.